Hello and welcome to the Irish Constitution Hour. I'm your host, Josh. My co-host is Sarah from éıʀe. The date of this recording is January 26th, 2025, and we are currently broadcasting live on X. Today is episode 2 of our 12-part series discussing the 1937 bunrak na hÉireann. For the next 11 weeks, myself, Sarah, and our constitutional expert, Mark Anthony, will be discussing and illuminating the 1937 Irish Constitution. Over the next 60 minutes, Sarah and I will strive to be objective, and the opinions conveyed are held by those who say them, and said opinions are by no means intended to be legal or lawful advice. The information shared in the next hour is derived from original sources, and the audience can find a complete list of these sources on the website, bunrak1937.ie. At this point, we'll put the link for this website up in the nest so that people can access it. I recommend bookmarking it and revisiting these subjects at a later date, having that website at hand. It's a very good resource. So during the course of this discussion on X, the audience can put their questions in the bubble in the right-hand corner. Everyone is invited to join the éıʀe 1937 community group on X. If you look at my profile, it's a spotlight group, so you can just click on that box there, join the group, and we have constructive conversations related to the themes involved of the bunrak within that group. It's an excellent group, and we look forward to continuing to build it. So Sarah from éıʀe is going to kick off our Irish Constitution Hour by providing us with a baseline of facts related to the themes discussed in today's episode. And thereafter, Sarah's introduction of these baseline facts, I will introduce the man leading this here voyage, Mr. Mark Anthony. Sarah, let's begin the episode.
Thanks, Josh. Hello, everybody, and thanks for tuning in. So last week was our first week, and we looked at the preamble and its importance. And today we're starting with looking at the articles. So the articles of the Irish Constitution, they form the legal foundation of the state, expresses the will of the Irish nation, and guides its governance. The articles reflect key principles of Irish sovereignty, identity, and values. They outline specific rules, rights, and structure that guides the functioning of the state and the relationship.
Josh, can you just have a wee check on the sound there? It's very, very crackly. Is anybody else getting that? Just thumbs up, folks.
I was from Josh's mic there.
The sound was not good on my end. The sound is not good on my end. Is this my understanding?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it must be
maybe if you have a computer or something open nearby or something, it can interfere if you open up two sites sort of at the same time. So just be aware of that.
That was a good amendment. Thank you for letting me know now. I have made the adjustment. Is this better?
Yes.
Okay. Sarah, let's begin again. Let's start it off from the top here, okay, with the baseline of facts.
Okay. So, as I said, the preamble, we looked at that last week in show number 1. Today, we'll be starting off with the articles of the Irish Constitution. So, the articles within the Irish Constitution form the legal foundation of the state, expresses the will of the Irish nation, and guides its governance. The articles reflect key principles of Irish sovereignty, identity, and values. They outline specific rules, rights, and structure that guides the functioning of the state and the relationship between the people and the government. Today we're looking at Articles 1, 2, and 3, which relates to the authority of the Irish nation, the national territory, and its reintegration. So I will read Article 1 for you guys, just to let you know that you can download the An bunracht from the website there, bunracht1937.ie, if you want to follow along. But I'll also be posting the articles and some information on Josh's page there, okay? So Article 1 of the Irish Constitution. The Irish nation hereby affirms its inalienable, indefeasible, and sovereign right to choose its own form of government, to determine its relations with other nations, and to develop its life, political, economic, and cultural, in accordance with its own genius and traditions. So I will read Article 2 and 3 at a later date, and I'll just hand you over to Josh now again. Okay, Josh? Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Sarah. So at this point, I'm going to introduce the man who's guiding this year voyage for the next 11 weeks. That is Mr. Mark Anthony. Mr. Mark Anthony is a native man from the Irish Constitutional Republic of éiʀe. He's a land protector, constitutional analyst, and a political activist. Mr. Anthony is the co-creator of the website bunracht1937.ie, Irish law for Irish people. So Mark, you heard Sarah read off Article 1. Let's focus in on Article 1, and then we will move on to Article 2 and 3. What are your overarching thoughts related to Article 1, Mark?
Hello, folks. Thanks for having me again. So the second edition of this, the nation. What does a nation consist of? What is a nation? What is a national? I suppose we are the nation, the Irish nation, the people, the Irish people, the Irish nation. So it's the people. I'm Pobble. So there's a lot of big words in the first article. The first article has never changed, and nor has the preamble, which we covered last week. So the Irish nation, the Irish people, hereby affirms. So we're affirming it. It's inalienable. So what is inalienable? Well, not subject to be taken away from or given by a possessor. Its shareholders have inalienable right to dismiss the directors. Inviolable, absolute, sacrosanct, unchallengeable, unassailable, untransferable, non-transferable, non-negotiable, inherent, being antecedent to state, and imprescriptible. So, and then you have the next word to it, indefeasible. Well, what's that mean? Not subject to being lost, annulled, or overturned. An indefeasible right. So, what's a sovereign? What's sovereign rights? Well, the people's sovereign. The Irish nation sovereign, not the state. The state comes in Article 4, 5, 6, up to Article 11. The people created the state. The people were here before the state, the Irish people, the Irish nation. So a sovereign right refers to the full authority. It says here, I got this here right, the full authority of the people, the nation, possession and govern its internal affairs and maintain independence from other states or states on an international arena. What is a sovereignty of rights? It's international dimension. Sovereignty is a right of a state to rule itself and those who live within its territory. So a nation, the nation created the state. So the people, to govern itself within its territory, to choose its own constitution. So we did that, the written constitution here, which we're speaking about. And to form a government of economic system, to write and enforce its own laws, and to exercise a territorial monopoly on public sanction, use of force through its through its territory or whatever, through its jurisdictions. So there's a lot even in that Article 1, but it goes on then to say, to determine its relations with other nations. So we done that based on international law, democratic principles based on international law as a guide. So we only accept international agreements as a guide. So that's why they would use that. We're morally obligated. Are we legally obligated or lawfully obligated? That's the question. Not morally, legally or lawfully. So no, we're not legally or lawfully obligated by international laws impeding on constitutional national policy and the primary law of the state and the nation. So, and develop its life. So we're developing ourselves, political, economic. So selling ourselves, whatever, cultural. Like the Irish culture goes back thousands of years in accordance with its own genius. There's your saints and scholars, the script and orthography, even the written text that we used on a day-to-day basis was removed from us and replaced with a standardized version of it, lesser than a Roman font. And we're told that it's Irish. It's not Irish, you know. So, and traditions. So we've got traditions here, like, that outdate any state government or anything like that. One of them being cutting turf, you know, tending the land. And that's been denied to people here. So that alone is all unconstitutional. So I'm going to read you a couple of extracts here now from J.M. Kelly, The Irish Constitution, 2nd edition, 1984. And it's page 9, Articles 1 to 3, the nation. Political theories on which the people acted when they enacted the Constitution. The court went on to summarize an important area of theory or aspiration. One of the theories held in the 1937 by a substantial number of its citizens was the nation, as distinct from the state, had rights. The Irish people, living in what is now called the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, together formed the Irish nation. The nation has a right to unity of territory in some form, be it a unitary or federal state, and the Government of Ireland Act 1920, though legally binding, was a violation of that natural right to unity, which is superior to all positive law. Article 1 will signalise the end of an old regime. Article 1 has been used in the argument in conjunction with several other articles in few cases in which the courts formulated their judgments without specifically considering it. In Attorney General versus Crawford, it was sought to identify the revenues commissioners with or as successors to the Crown. In rejecting this submission, Maguire J. said, "The matter has been put beyond doubt by the Constitution of éöre," not Ireland, the Constitution of éöre. Article 1, Article 6, Article 11, Article 12, Article 15, Article 25, Article 28, Article 30, and Article 49, of which are all clearly repugnant to the continued existence of the Crown as an expression, designated function of the government in the state. It also echoes the earlier documents significant to the Irish political history, in particular the 1916 proclamation, which declared the right of the people of Ireland to the ownership of Ireland and to the unfettered control of Irish destinies to be sovereign and indefeasible. The Sinn Féin manifesto for 1918 general election, which declared Sinn Féin's acceptance of that proclamation and its reassertion of the inalienable right of the Irish nation to be sovereign, independence, and the message from Dáil Éireann to the free nations of the world in 1919. Let me see here, in 1919, asserting Ireland's inalienable right of nationhood. These documents are reproduced in Dorothy McArdle's The Irish Republic, pages 168, 919, and 925, respectively. So everything that I have just spoken about there, I have the message to the free nations of the world, which was read out on the day of independence, 21st of January 1919. It was written in 3 languages, 3 texts: Clo Gaelic, Irish font; French, because they tipped their hat to the Irish Republic; and English. I'm going to read the English message to the nations of the free world. Message to the nations of the free world. To the nations of the free world, greetings. The nation of Ireland, having proclaimed her national independence, calls through her elected representatives in the Parliament assembled in the Irish capital on the 21st day of January 1919, upon every free nation to be supported the Irish Republic by recognising Irish national status and her right to vindication at the Peace Congress. Nationally, the race, the language, the customs, and the traditions, that's Article 1, of Ireland are radically distinct from English. Ireland is one of the most ancient nations in Europe, and she has preserved her national integrity, vigorous and intact through 7 centuries, now 8 centuries, of foreign oppression. She has never relinquished her national rights, and throughout that long era of English usurpation, she has in every generation defiantly proclaimed her inalienable right of nationhood down to her last glorious resort in arms in 1916. Internationally, Ireland is the gateway of the Atlantic. Ireland is the last outpost of Europe towards the west. Ireland is at the point upon which great trade routes between east and west coverage. Her independence is demanded by freedom of the seas. Her great harbours must be open to all nations instead of being a monopoly of England. Today, these harbours are empty and idle solely because English policy is determined to retain Ireland as a barren bulwark for English aggrandizement and a unique geographical position of this island, far from being benefit and safeguard to Europe and America, is subject to the purpose of England's policy of the world domination. Ireland today reasserts her historic nationhood the more confidently before the new world emerging from the war, because she believes in freedom and justice and the fundamental principles of international law, because she believes in frank cooperation between peoples for equal rights against vested privileges of ancient tyrannies, because the permanent peace of Europe can never be secured by perpetuating military dominion for profit of an empire, only by establishing the control of the government in every land upon this basis of the free will of a free people and the existing state of war, which we are perpetually in. Article 28.3.3 of the Constitution, artificially extended meaning time of war, between Ireland and England can never be ended, as it states in that, until they declare for this such emergency, armed rebellion, or whatever to cease to exist. Until Ireland definitely evacuated the armed forces of England. For these, among other reasons, Ireland resolutely and irrevocably determined at the dawn of the promised era of self-determination and liberty that she will suffer foreign dominion no longer, calls upon every free nation to uphold her national claim to complete independence as the Irish Republic against arrogant pretensions of England founded in fraud and sustained only by overwhelming military occupation, and demands to confront it publicly with England at the Congress of Nations in order that the civilized world, having judged between English wrong and Irish right, may guarantee to Ireland its permanent support for the maintenance of her national independence. Back over to you, Josh.
Thank you, Mark. I think I do have a question related to this. I just want to bring up this here concept. It's called Irish parliamentarianism. And my understanding is this idea of parliamentarianism was born out of the Act of Union. And people have been very critical of the Act of Union in 1800. But as it relates to this article here that we are discussing, I do find it interesting that in Article 1, we say the Irish nation hereby affirms its inalienable, indefeasible, and sovereign right to choose its own form of government. Its own form of government. Why in 1937 was the own form of government a new form of parliamentarianism? And I don't know what other options there would have been other than what it is they chose in 1937. But it is curious to me that parliamentarianism, born out of England, was the form of government that was chosen, in a sense. Am I wrong in this assertion here that parliamentarianism was continued on after 1937? And do you think that Ireland has chosen its own form of government? Keep your answer to like a minute or two, and then we'll move on to the second article.
Yeah, look, we've just seen the last elections. It took them 2 months to form a government. And what it was just a complete reshuffle of the last government. And it was the lowest turnout since 1923, the creation of the Irish Free State. So it's not by popular opinion. It's not by popular opinion. As in parliamentarian, that's democracy. So that's the people being able to elect their representative government. But if, as I say, if you look at Article 6.1, in English, it says all powers of government, whereas the Irish says it is an pobal, it is from the people. Is an pobal. So it's from the people. So the government or the people are the silent majority, the fourth executive, that they are not letting the people, they're keeping the people blind to that fact that the people have final say of all questions of national policy.
Right. Would you like to make a brief comment on this word genius? In Article 1, just to quote it, it says that, as I mentioned, indefeasible and sovereign right to choose its own form of government, to determine its relations with other nations, and to develop its life, political, economic, and cultural in accordance with its own genius and traditions. This word genius is curious to many people in Ireland, and I'm curious, what would be the difference between genius written in Clo Gaelic versus the word genius in English? Would you like to comment on that?
Yes, the Clo Gaelic is what separates us from Roman civil procedure, a standalone Irish national sovereign and independent. Genius is extraordinary intellectual powers. Extraordinary intellectual power. So that's what we used in writing that and the 1919 Constitution, writing it in Clo Gaelic, because it separated us through our own genius to be able to have Irish law in a written constitution enrolled in the Supreme Court, which is superior to all positive law, superior to everything else. So extraordinary intellectual power, especially as manifested in creative activity. So we created a document knowing that tyranny will try and come in the future again. And this document protects us from tyranny happening. The way that the government's operating at the minute through emergency powers, that's tyranny. They're doing that. They're artificially creating crisis after crisis and monopolizing on it, and that must not be so. Democracy is dead if that's the case. So, manifested creative activity: a person endowed with extraordinary mental superiority, especially a person with a very high IQ. So, it lies within the text that was left to us. And on the Garden of Remembrance, it says, "O generations of the freedom, remember us, the generations of the vision." And the message to the free nations of the world, well, you're in Canada and Sandra's in Canada. So we're putting this out internationally here, that this has been declared in 1919. We are a constitutional republic. We're living under a dictatorship and tyranny under Article 24 and 28.3.3 of the Constitution, and it must not be so. And we're pleading to the diaspora across the world to take notice of what's happening in éiʀe, because Donald Trump and the biggest Western market is certainly taking a keen interest, as we've seen there in his speech at the World Economic Forum.
Right. Okay. So that will sum up Article 1 quite succinctly. We went through the word nation. What is a nation? We went through inalienable, indefeasible, and the word sovereign. And then we touched on the word genius. And as mentioned, the distinction and the difference between Clo Gaelic and English is a theme that will be current and will keep coming up as we go through these articles. Sarah, can you read out Article 2, and then we will get Mark's comment on Article 2.
Yes, of course. Article 2. The national territory consists of the whole island of Ireland, its islands, and the territorial seas.
Mark, would you like to comment on the territory? Is that the entire article, Sarah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like that in the Blue Book. Since 1999, the 1998 and the Good Friday Agreement, they have saying it is the entitlement of anybody born in the island of Ireland to be part of the nation. So they're trying to say they're Irish, not, it's, so if you look at the passport, so the passport's issued by the Minister for Trade and Foreign Affairs. Why is it not Minister by the Home Office? But within it, in page 3, éiʀe has put a map. So the most important thing a state can do is issue a map of the territory of where they have jurisdiction over, constitutionally, because the Constitution is the rule of law. So they have done that on page 3 of the Irish passport. And it's very distinct. There's no borders in it. Takes in all the rivers. Takes in all the seas, the Atlantic Ocean to the left of it, the Irish Sea to the right of it. So it's the devil's in the detail, people. They're telling you. It's also in the coinage, éiʀe. Not Ireland, éiʀe. So, because the North is actually part of the EU, still within this Windsor framework, Windsor Treaty, still within the European single market, because they cannot put another infrastructure on the island of éiʀe. Plain and simple.
Okay, So Sarah, if you could put a picture in the bubble, if you haven't already, of the passport, and also the text of the Article 2 as it was originally written. So if you were to go on to Grok, let's say right now, and ask, what is Article 2 of the 1937 bunrak? It will say, it is the entitlement and birthright of every person born in the island of Ireland, which includes its islands and seas, to be part of the Irish nation. That nation has the right to determine its own affairs subject to the will of the people and to achieve its unity and sovereignty. So a brief comment here. Sarah, when I asked Sarah to read Article 2, that was a very brief, succinct definition. Now, Article 2, as seen through Grok and the English translation, it expands up quite a bit. And I'm curious, Mark, in this expansion of Article 2 from Clo Gaelic to English, do you have some problems with the English translation in Article 2?
Yes, absolutely. I'll try and get you what actually they've replaced it with here. The 1999 Constitution. So you're only after hearing two lines there, and the official literal translation says the island of Ireland, right? Entirely, along with its islands, its bordering territorial seas, and the national territories and territory. So that's what the Clo Gaelic actually says. So the English then says the national territory consists of the whole island, its islands, and territorial seas. But I'm going to read you what they replaced it with in 1999. This was two referendums held, one in Northern Ireland and one in the Republic of Ireland, and that was called the National Referendum. Two so-called different statelets holding a national, you know what I mean? Can't be right. Like. So it is the entitlement and birthright. This is under the map, by the way, in the Irish passport at the minute. It is the entitlement and birthright of every person, not national, person, born on the island of Ireland, which includes its islands and seas, to be part of the Irish nation, to be an Irish national. That is also the entitlement of every person otherwise qualified in accordance with law to be citizens of Ireland. Furthermore, the Irish nation cherishes its special affinity with people of Irish ancestry living abroad who share its cultural identity and heritage. That's just open borders, people, is what they're saying. They've done away with the just soli. Just soli is a Latin term, JUS-SOLI, just soli birthright. And they've done away with the birthright of this country, more or less saying anybody can be part of the Irish nation. So
I will note that this year Enterprise, as mentioned, is going to be 11 weeks. Every Sunday we are meeting at 4:30 Irish Standard Time. And one episode we have discussed doing in the future is an episode dedicated to the Good Friday Agreement. And two of the articles of which we are discussing today, Article 2 and Article 3, were both amended in the 1999 Good Friday Agreement. We're going to move on to Article 3 very shortly, just because time considerations, but also my host here, my co-host has actually dropped off, unfortunately. We'll give that a minute. If people want to look up in the nest, you will see some great resources helping you follow along as we're going through this. These are taken from the empirical texts, very valuable books, all citations. You can go to the website, bunrak1937.ie, if you would like a full full dissection of these articles. But Mark, do you want to, just while we're waiting for Sarah to come back here, do you want to just kind of comment on?
I'm here.
Are you here, Sarah? Oh, okay, great. Sarah, if you don't mind, could you read out Article 3?
Yep. Article 3. Pending the reintegration of the national territory and without prejudice to the right of the Parliament and government established by this Constitution to exercise jurisdiction over the whole of that territory, the laws enacted by that Parliament shall have the like area and extent of application as the laws of Seerstadt Erin and the like extra-territorial effect.
Mark?
Yes. So just this is just a quick one here, okay? Just this was a missed one from Article 1, but Article 1, 2, and 3 are practically 1A, 1B, and 1C. They're all the nation. They're all interconnected. So this, you know, a somewhat more substantial role played by Article 1 in Byrne versus Ireland, in which the Supreme Court rejected the notion that the state enjoyed an internal sovereignty so as to give it immunity from suit. The case turned mainly on Article 5 and 49, but both Walsh and Bud JJ used Article 1 in asserting that the sovereign entity superior to the state is the people. The latter judge said, Article 1 of the Constitution itself underlines that it is the nation which can only be in reference to the people, which has the sovereign right to choose its own form of government. It has in fact done so by this enactment of the Constitution. Both Article 1 and Article 6 indicate that it is recognized in the Constitution itself. There is a higher authority than the state, and this again is incompatible with the theory that the state is sovereign as in regards to internal affairs of government. Very important. That's a Supreme Court citation coming from the Irish Constitution, again, the second edition, J.M. Kelly, page 10. So Article 3. So the word pending. What's the word pending mean? So pending. Awaiting a decision or settlement. 9 cases were still pending. Unresolved, undecided, unsettled. Unconcluded, uncertain, awaiting decision, awaiting action, undetermined, still open, hanging fire, up in the air, in limbo, in the balance, on ice, in reserve. Why would they use that language in Article 3 in 1937? Well, there was a treaty in place, and there was a unionist majority in the north, 6 counties, the northeast, called Northern Ireland. So there would have been no point saying, right, we want to unify, because the people of the north would have said no, and the Crown establishment had an allegiance to them people to protect them because they were loyal to the Crown. Okay, so there is a treaty, the Anglo-Irish Treaty, which was terms for a treaty were signed on the 6th of December 1921 in 10 Downing Street, and it was enacted on the 6th of December 1922, and it had a 99, that's Article 11 of the 1922 Irish Free State Constitution. Sarah Jane has that there, and she's going to read out, because you'll hear coming near the end of the article, and it's about all the land and all that there, the 99-year leasehold. So can you do that, sir?
Yeah. So this is Article 11 of the Seerstadt Erin Constitution. All the lands and waters, mines and minerals within the territory of the Irish Free State, Seerstadt Erin, hitherto vested in the state or any department thereof, are held for the public use or benefit, and also all the natural resources of the same territory, including the air and all forms of potential energy, and also all royalties and franchises within that territory, shall, from and after the date of the coming into operation of this Constitution, that's the Saoirse Éireann one, belong to the Irish Free State, subject to any trusts, grants, leases, or concessions then existing in respect thereof, or any valid private interest therein, and shall be controlled and administered by the Oireachtas in accordance with such regulations and provisions as shall be from time to time approved by legislation. But the same shall not, nor shall any part thereof, be alienated, but may, in the public interest, be from time to time granted by way of lease or license to be worked or enjoyed under the authority and subject to the control of the Oireachtas, provided that no such lease or license may be made for a term exceeding 99 years, beginning from the date thereof, and no such lease or license may be renewable by the terms thereof. Thanks.
So you've just heard the 99-year lease there. So so that was enacted came into power on the 6th of December 1922. 99 years, 364 days, 23 hours and 59 minutes and 59 seconds brings on the 5th of December 2022 brings you up to midnight. That there brings you until the 6th of December 2022. And by the February of 2023, you had the European Union and the British government sitting around a treaty table offshore discussing the future of this island. And it's very important because the Irish President, Michael D. Higgins, they have to tell you these things. So on the 17th of September, and this will be in the bubble down below, it's a BBC, so when you look at the video in it, listen to the words, and he talks about a treaty, but in the subtitles it comes up Anglo-Irish Treaty. And this is what I picked up at that time, and the Irish President rejected an invitation to the 100-year partition celebration being Northern Ireland in St. Patrick's Cathedral in Armagh, September 2021, on the grounds that the initial invitation was addressed to the President of the Republic of Ireland, to which his response was, "I am the President of Ireland, éiïʀe na hÉireann," in the Irish tongue. He also stated, and I quote, "It isn't a neutral statement politically. What you do is you take out all the facts, and those are the things that we don't dispute. So that's what we're doing here now. And then you have all the interpretations, and then you can do all the rhetorical flourishes on it. And let's be clear as well, that in relation to when you come to other things, that's why doing commemorations is difficult. Because let's say, for example, the Good Friday Agreement, we all want to work, but the treaty, it's at that point where it comes up Anglo-Irish Treaty in brackets. For example, that will arise on the next phase of what we are doing. So nobody ever heard of this. But he's telling us it will arise on the next phase of what we are doing. It's very different to the Good Friday Agreement. You enter into it with negotiations and you come out of it with agreement. You make commitments, and that is a sovereign subtle. Sarah Jane has a good point on that there as well. In the other one, you have to look at the context of how a free people, to where they would consent. And you have to deal with it whether you like it or not. The issue of coercion. So that's why I may express my gratitude for the people in Ireland who have been saying that they understand that I was taking a complex decision and that they have trust in me He also stated on the 4th or 5th of May 2021, the bank holiday weekend, that things happened in the past that they, being the people, must recall their factual setting as much as possible. Michael D. Higgins, we have recalled our factual setting, and this is our findings. So they have been warning us, so we've been coerced into another 99-year deal, and that is called the Windsor Treaty. But they buttered it up, called the Windsor Framework. They brought it to the King of England for royal assent for decisions made on both north and south of this island for the next 99 years. Where was the president? Where was the Taoiseach? Or an Taoiseach, an Taoiseach, an éiūchtaráin? Where was the First Minister for Northern Ireland? Where was the Deputy First Minister? Where was the Secretary of State? Where was all these political parties speaking about this? We were distracted, people. We were distracted. So,
Right. So we have the Good Friday Agreement, and as mentioned, Mark, we are going
yeah,
to take a closer look at the Good Friday Agreement in isolation for an entire
yeah,
hour at some point during this here journey. It will be kind of like a side episode, maybe during the week or something. We'll look at the Good Friday Agreement. I have a question. Do you think we should also look at the Anglo-Irish Treaty signed in 1921, the Articles of Agreement for a treaty between Great Britain and Ireland? That
absolutely.
we should look at that in isolation too, should we not?
Yes, absolutely. It's all part of what's happening now because Ireland is owned by Britain. The Kingdom of Ireland and Great Britain and the Commonwealth of Nations. That's why we named the state éiūʀe, and that hasn't changed in Article 4 or Article 5 in the Irish text, and even in the English text, Article 4. éiūʀe is Annam Dom Stat. So, and it's the people of éiūʀe. So who is the government of Ireland? What is the government of Ireland? What is the Government of Ireland Act 1920? Well, we're talking about Article 3 here. Article 3. This is out of the same book, second edition, 1984. These are the standards of law, people. These books are like hen's teeth, very hard to come by. Article 3 might nevertheless impose a limit on what the government could lawfully do, he said. An acknowledgement of the government that the state does not claim an entitlement as right to jurisdiction over Northern Ireland, because they're saying pending the reintegration. They were acknowledging and they were going along. But come the end of the 99 years, well, Michael D. Higgins said there, we mustn't be coerced. We should be given a vote on this. But we weren't. People made a decision for us. An acknowledgement that the government does not claim entitlement as far as right to jurisdiction over Northern Ireland would be, in my opinion, clearly not within the competence of a government having regard to the terms of the Constitution. I cannot presume that the government would not consciously make an acknowledgement of that kind. In according, I accept the view of the Chief Justice that Clause 5 represents no more than a reference to the de facto position of Northern Ireland, coupled with the statement of policy in regards thereto, a physical extent of the state, in the same sense the area in which the laws apply are described by Article 3, not provisionally, pending the reintegration, etc. But also indirectly, the reference to the extent the state's predecessor, Sirstat Éireann, the Constitution of 1922, however, contained no statement of the state's extent. It says to the whole area and the lake area of the national territory. So the area of the jurisdiction has to be gathered elsewhere as follows. The Government of Ireland Act 1920, where Article 65 of that act, Freemasons have special provisions. Provided for Parliament for both Northern and Southern Ireland. The Parliament of Northern Ireland, which the fact came into function until 1972, and then the European Union came in, you see, constitutionally. You see that, people? So that came function until 1972, and then the European Union came in, because the UK and Ireland joined it on the same day. Had by Section 1, 2, limited jurisdiction over the parliamentary counties of Antrim, Armagh, Down, Fermanagh, Londonderry, Tyrone. As parliamentary boroughs of Belfast and Londonderry, the parliamentary Southern Ireland was to have jurisdiction over the rest of Ireland. The Southern Parliament never functioned after the first abortive meeting, and the 1921 treaty envisioned instead the Irish Free State sensibly, or whatever, right? I'll get that word for you. Comprising of the whole island, from which, however, the Article 12 of the Northern Ireland Parliament could not opt out. The Constitution of the Irish Free State, éıʀe, came into force on the 6th of December 1922, and on the following day, the Parliament of Northern Ireland exercised opting out powers by the Treaty Confirmation Amending Agreement Act 1925, éıʀe, confirmed that the extent of Northern Ireland for the purposes of Government of Ireland Act 1920 and the treaty, being the Anglo-Irish Treaty, shall such fixed subsection to the subsection of the Act accordingly the jurisdiction of éisteacht, and thus the present jurisdiction of the state in virtue of Article 3 is gathered in regarding it is Ireland minus Northern Ireland as defined by 1 Section 2 of the Government of Ireland Act 1920.
Okay, that is a lot of information for the audience to digest. If you would like to look in the bubble in the right-hand corner, Sarah has provided citations for everything of which Mark was just illuminating. You can also go to the website bunrak1937.ie for more citations and commentary on these particular articles. Now we have 5 minutes remaining, Mark, and I'd like to just kind of get your comments of maybe the journey from, we have the preamble, now we've walked into the article 1, 2, and 3, and as you say, it's article 1, 1b, and 1c. So as a package, let's have a commentary on where these articles are as a package today in éıʀe, and you have about 4 minutes or so to just kind of talk about this, what the people of éıʀe can expect of this. What is the status of 1, 2, and 3 right now in some?
Well, the Gaelic League and the great patriots who set up éıʀe as we know it before the past 30 years has went into serious decline towards being globalization and diluting of national rights. Well, the preamble is not a provision, therefore not subject to change, and it states explicitly on it where the actions of both men and states will be referred. We, the people of éıʀe, all our obligations are to our divine Lord Jesus Christ. We've established a Christian nation. And who is these people then? Well, the Irish people hereby affirms its inalienable, indefeasible, and the Irish nation, its indefeasible, inalienable, and sovereign right to choose its own form of government, to determine its relations with other nations, through its own life, political, economic, and cultural, in accordance with its own genius and traditions. The national territory consists, where do these people, this indigenous people, live? Well, the national territory consists of the whole island. Aye, but there's people up here who, there's a treaty in place here. Okay, we'll take care of that pending the reintegration of the national territory. Pending the reintegration. So we do live in a democracy. There was something saying back then, it is an 89-year lease, and if we want to be taken seriously on the international stage as international peacekeepers, well, to create that back then would have created infinite war, a civil war on this island. So they took that into consideration. But it says, pending the reintegration of the national territory and without prejudice to the right of the Parliament and the government established by this Constitution to exercise jurisdiction over the whole of that territory. Go back up to Article 2. The national territory consists of the whole island, its islands, and its territorial seas. The laws enacted by the Parliament shall have the like area extent application of the laws in Seerstat Éireann and the like extraterrestrial effect. Will the like extraterrestrial effect be in Northern Ireland? So
30 seconds.
Yeah, so I'll just leave it at that there, people. It's something to mull over. We're the Irish nation. We're the people of Ireland, not Ireland. The Crown copyright own Ireland. So the head of the Crown establishment is the King of England, but the Crown establishment is bigger than the King of England. It's the courts, it's everything. So the Crown establishment are trying to take control here, and we removed it through all those articles which are read out today. Thank you very much, Gurmy.
Thank you. Great job, Mark. Great job, Sarah. This concludes our episode for this week. Next week, join us for another Irish Constitution Hour. Same day, same time. It may be appropriate for us to do a Good Friday episode midweek this week. Possible. We want to put it in its right context, and it seems like the Good Friday Agreement, because it amended Article 2 and 3, it may be apropos to discuss. Hello, and